Winchester Mystery House, San Jose, California, 1886. A wealthy widow purchases a small farmhouse and begins what can only be described as the longest home renovation in history. For the next 36 years, construction never stops. Not during the day, not at night, not on weekends or holidays. Carpenters work around the clock, adding rooms, staircases, and hallways in a bizarre, sprawling maze. Doors that open to brick walls. Staircases that lead directly into ceilings. Windows that overlook other rooms. By the time construction finally stops in 1922, the house has grown to 160 rooms, spread across 6 acres with no coherent architectural plan. This is the Winchester Mystery House, and according to legend, it was built to confuse and trap the vengeful spirits of everyone killed by Winchester rifles. Sarah Winchester, heir to the Winchester firearms fortune, allegedly believed she was haunted and that continuous construction was the only way to appease the ghosts. But here's the twist. Almost everything you've even told about Sarah Winchester and her so-called mystery house is a lie, fabricated after her death to sell tickets. So what's the real story? What's up, everyone? Welcome back to the channel. The Winchester Mystery House is one of America's most famous tourist attractions, with millions of visitors over the past century. But the popular story about Sarah Winchester being a guilt-ridden, superstitious woman building a haunted maze is mostly marketing propaganda. Today, we're separating fact from fiction and uncovering what really happened. Let's dive in. Sarah Lockwood Pardee was born in 1839 in New Haven, Connecticut. She wasn't some fragile, unstable woman. She was highly educated, spoke 4 languages, and was considered intelligent and sharp-witted throughout her life. In 1862, she married William Wirt Winchester, heir to the Winchester Repeating Arms Company fortune. In 1866, they had a daughter named Annie, but tragedy struck when Annie died just a month after birth from a childhood illness called marasmus. 15 years later, in 1881, William died of tuberculosis. Between 1880 and 1881, Sarah also lost her mother and father-in-law. In just over a year, she had lost almost everyone close to her. Sarah inherited approximately $20 million, equivalent to about $500 million today, making her one of the wealthiest women in America. She also received nearly 50% ownership of the Winchester Repeating Arms Company, earning her about $1,000 per day in dividends. She was set for life financially but devastated emotionally. In 1884, seeking a fresh start away from New Haven, where she'd experienced so much loss, and then she began expanding it. Here's where the legend and reality diverged dramatically. According to the popular story promoted by tour guides and paranormal shows, Sarah visited a medium in Boston who told her she was cursed by the spirits of everyone killed by Winchester rifles. The medium allegedly said the only way to appease these vengeful ghosts was to move west and build a house for them, and that construction must never stop or she would die. This story has been repeated for over a century. There's just one problem: it's completely made up. There is no evidence Sarah Winchester ever visited a medium. Historians have never been able to verify this story. Sarah's employees, friends, and family members who knew her all denied it during her lifetime and after her death. So why did Sarah Winchester really spend 36 years constantly renovating her home? The truth is much simpler and more human. Sarah's father had been a carpenter during the Victorian era, and she grew up loving design and architecture. She and William had developed a passion for architecture while building their home together in Connecticut. Sarah subscribed to architectural magazines, attended design expositions, and taught herself the craft. She had wealth, time, and a genuine love of building. The constant construction wasn't about ghosts, it was her hobby and her way of staying connected to happier memories of building with William. Sarah was also a perfectionist. If she didn't like how something looked, she'd tear it down and rebuild it. The strange features, doors to nowhere, staircases ending at ceilings, weren't designed to confuse ghosts. Many resulted from the 1906 San Francisco earthquake, which severely damaged the house. Sarah had an entire 7-story tower and most of the 4th floor destroyed in the earthquake. She had the rubble cleared but didn't fully rebuild those sections, leaving behind the bizarre architectural remnants we see today. Other odd features came from her trial-and-error approach to design. She'd build something, decide she didn't like it, abandon it mid-construction, and start something else. The claim that construction went on 24/7 for 36 years is also false. Construction stopped many times. Sarah closed the house for almost a year in 1915 when relatives visited to attend the Panama Pacific International Exposition in San Francisco. After the 1906 earthquake, she did minimal work on the house for years, preferring to stay at her other residences. And contrary to legend, Sarah wasn't a recluse. She had an active social life, employed 18 servants and 18 gardeners, hosted her niece Marion Daisy Merriman, who lived with her for 15 years, and was known in the community as an intelligent, kind businesswoman and philanthropist. So where did all the ghost stories come from? They started appearing in newspapers as early as 1895, during Sarah's lifetime, when the San Francisco Chronicle published the first story, suggesting she was building to avoid death. In 1911, the San Francisco Examiner called it a house of mystery, but these were sensational newspaper stories, not facts. Sarah never responded publicly to any of the rumors. When Sarah died on September 5, 1922, at age 85, construction finally ceased. Her niece Marion inherited Sarah's personal belongings and the contents of both her homes, plus income from a trust fund. But the San Jose house itself was unmentioned in the will because Sarah intended it to be sold. The problem was that appraisers deemed the earthquake-damaged, oddly designed mansion essentially worthless. A local investor bought it for just $135,000 and leased it to John and Mame Brown, who opened it to the public as a tourist attraction in 1923, just 9 months after Sarah's death. This is when the mythology really exploded. The Browns needed to attract visitors, so they embraced and expanded the ghost stories. Legend has it that Harry Houdini visited in 1924 and suggested the name Winchester Mystery House in the 1970s and 1980s. Keith Kittle, who had worked at Disneyland, became general manager and turned the marketing up to 11. He added large billboards along highways featuring silhouetted houses with implications of ghost encounters. Many of the most bizarre features tourists see today were added after Sarah's death for dramatic effect. According to carpenter James Perkins, who worked on the house after Sarah died, the 13 chandeliers, 13 bathrooms, 13 hooks and robes were all added post-mortem to play up that Sarah was obsessed with the number 13 angle. The room tour guides claim Sarah held nightly seances in. It was actually her gardener's bedroom. Modern historians and Winchester Mystery House historian Jane Bohm have worked to restore Sarah's reputation. Bohm believes Sarah used her fortune to employ the San Jose community, essentially running a massive public works project disguised as home construction. She had a social conscience, and she did try to give back, Bohm notes, pointing out that Sarah also built a hospital in her husband's name. Testimonies from people who knew Sarah describe her as intelligent, kind, a savvy financial manager, and not superstitious at all. But the Winchester Mystery House as a business has no incentive to correct the record. The ghost story sells tickets. Tour guides are required to tell the supernatural version, even though it's demonstrably false. They lean into all the paranormal claims because that's what tourists want to hear. And it works. Over 12 million people have visited since 1923, making it one of California's most popular tourist attractions. Is the house actually haunted? Paranormal investigators and visitors report the usual claims: cold spots, strange sounds, feelings of being watched. But these reports only started after the house was marketed as haunted. For the 36 years Sarah lived there, there are no reports of paranormal activity from her staff, family, or Sarah herself. The hauntings conveniently began after it became profitable for them to exist. The real mystery of the Winchester Mystery House isn't why Sarah built it. The mystery is why we're more comfortable believing a woman was crazy and guilt-ridden rather than accepting she was intelligent, creative, and independently wealthy enough to pursue an unusual hobby. Sarah Winchester suffered tremendous loss and grief, but she didn't let it destroy her. She created something unique, employed hundreds of people, and lived life on her own terms. That's not spooky or mysterious, that's admirable. Today you can tour the Winchester Mystery House and see its 160 rooms, odd architectural features, and beautiful Victorian craftsmanship. Just remember that the story you're being told is designed to entertain, not educate. Sarah Winchester wasn't haunted by ghosts. She was haunted by grief, like anyone who loses loved ones. She just had the resources to deal with it in an unconventional way. So what do you think? Were you surprised to learn the ghost story is fake? And does knowing the truth make the house more or less interesting? Drop your thoughts in the comments. If you enjoyed this deep dive into the real story behind one of America's most famous haunted houses, hit that like button, subscribe for more myth-busting content, and turn on notifications. Thanks for watching. I'll see you in the next one.